Welcome to one of the main events that the Town of Westport Board of Health is sponsoring to focus and highlight Mental Health Awareness Month. My name is Donna Amaral, and I am an elected member of the Board of Health, as well as a psychiatric mental health clinical nurse specialist, and I have over 40 years of practice and experience. As you know, May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and the Board of Health has sponsored events that educate our community about this important public health issue. We can move forward together for mental health by increasing our understanding of some of the emotional challenges experienced by youth, families, and ourselves. Tonight's presentation, Increase Positive Interactions and Emotional Well-Being, Family Communication, will address ways to improve communication in families to enhance the emotional well-being of all. Family miscommunication, conflict, and possible emotional distancing can create tension that can negatively impact the mental health of our kids and of ourselves. Finding ways to improve our interactions that support the growth and development of our teens, the better we prepare them and ourselves for their launching into adulthood. It's tough to be a kid and teen growing up in this world today. It can also be tough being a parent to that person. Last year, I, alongside middle and high school adjustment counselors, Mary Jo Medeiros, who's here this evening, and Sean Thomas, who is also here, as well as Jennifer Borelli, presented mental health first aid for youth. We addressed ways to assess and respond to youth in crisis. Key elements of that topic were the importance of listening without judgment, providing encouragement, reassurance, support, and emphasized teaching and encouraging self-help strategies and skill building. Whenever I interact with anyone, I always keep this in mind. Everyone wants to be seen, heard, accepted, and understood. So this is something for all of us to think about and helpful to remember when interacting within your own family. Remember, words can be windows and doors, or they can be walls. There will be an opportunity at the end of the presentation for questions that may be addressed to Mary Jo, Sean, and our main speaker, Megan O'Brien. And now I would like to introduce Megan. Megan O'Brien is a licensed independent clinical social worker who graduated from Boston College with a master's degree in clinical social work. She received the Boston College School of Social Work Contribution to Community Award for her work collecting books for Boston Public Schools, libraries, and collecting coats for those in need, and establishing a student alert system to work on other community efforts. She provided in-home therapy to stabilize families under the Children's Behavioral Health Initiative. She has supported patients and families as a medical social worker at the Metro West Medical Center in Framingham and at St. Luke's Hospital in New Bedford. Currently, Megan works at the Westport Family Medicine Office as a behavioral health clinician. She also has a private practice in Dartmouth where she provides therapy to adolescents and adults. Please join me in welcoming Megan O'Brien.
Thank you, Donna. So I wanted to thank Donna for inviting me to speak this evening. I wanted to also thank Mary Jo and Sean for welcoming me into the school. And so I just wanted to thank you for that. So I think it's helpful when we're having a discussion about communication in any situation to understand the roles of the people that are involved in the communication. So we know what to expect from them and what's expected of us. So the parents' roles I see is based on life stage. Parents have lived longer than their children. They may have already rented an apartment. They may have already looked for a job. They may have navigated the end of some difficult relationships and the beauty of starting new ones. They may have been able to save up for a mortgage. They may have done a lot of things that their teenager just hasn't done yet. And they can pass along lessons learned from that experience. And it's kind of like an analogy I like to use is high school students have experiences that middle school students don't. So sometimes high school students can say to a middle school student, this is what I learned, this is what I wish I had known before I started high school. It's kind of like that. Parents may want to pass on some of their experience to their children to save them from making some of the mistakes that they made. And some of the roles I see parents have are nurture. Teenagers thrive when they're surrounded by adults who believe in them and hold them to do their very best. To do that, we listen, we make time, we show an interest, we know they have a math test tomorrow, then we know they're trying out for the soccer team on Saturday, and we encourage them to pursue their own passions. Teenagers are trying to find out who they are, and they want to maybe try this out and try that out. And it's a parent's role to encourage them to pursue those interests, to help them learn who they are, separate from who the parents are, and also communicate to them they are loved and accepted. Everybody wants to be loved for who they are exactly as they are, with their flaws and their positive traits just as they are. And the other role parents have is to provide structure, because teenagers will become adults who will be ready to thrive in a world full of rules and expectations, whether they're going to work after high school at a job or they're going to go to college. There's rules and expectations in any arena they choose. So they have to learn how to do well in those arenas. And to provide structure, parents give instruction, impose rules, use discipline, set limits, establish and follow through with consequences, and teach values. So values may be a vague term, but when I say values, I mean kinds of things that we would teach our children are important to be successful in whatever they try to do. Values like to be honest, and to have some integrity, and to be reliable and dependable. We all want our children, we also want to be people that can be counted on. I do what I say I'm going to do. I tell the truth. As hard as it is sometimes, I still tell the truth because I want to be trusted by people. I don't want people to mistrust me. And so I have to be honest. And again, sometimes it's hard, but I'm going to try my very best to do that. And teenagers' roles, again, are based on their life stage. Teenagers at this point in their life are pushing away from their parents because they're trying to discover who they are separate from their parents. I understand what their beliefs are and what their values are and what they like, but what about me? Do I agree with those, or is there something else that I would like to be, or something else I want to try, or something else I also value, separate from my parents? And that's developmentally right on target, because they're getting ready to be launched. They're ready to leave the home and start their own life, and they need to figure out who they are to be able to do that. And so also the roles are to incorporate life skills that the parents pass along, things like time management. You have to be on time for a job. You have to turn things in on time. You have to go to college and turn things in on time. You have to show up for class on time. You have to learn considerate living. Things like you have to consider what other people need and want where you're living. So clean up after yourself. If you use plates and dishes, put them away. If you're using a common space in the home, clean up after you're done, because you want to be considerate of who else lives there. Who else may want to use that common space? Who may also want to use those plates and pots and pans? Be considerate of them. If you leave early in the morning, people are sleeping. Come in late at night, people are sleeping. Be considerate of them and be quiet. Because nobody wants to be that roommate that nobody likes. That roommate leaves a mess in the kitchen, the bathroom's a mess. No one wants to be that roommate that everybody else is complaining about. So considerate living is a useful skill to learn. And then budgeting. Someday you may want to save up for a car or for a house or whatever you want. Parents may can teach you how to budget your money to achieve that goal. Those are just some examples of some life skills. And some teenager traits we may lose sight of. These are just a few, and there's many, but parents matter more to their teenager than anything or anyone else in their lives, even if they push away and pretend their parents don't matter. It's absolutely true. I know it's hard to believe sometimes when they're saying, you don't know anything, you don't understand, you don't know what I'm going through. They're pushing away, developmentally right on task, but they care very much about what you think and what you say. And that's, when my private practice, that's the chief complaint I hear from teenagers, the chief complaint, but the chief issue they want to discuss with me is what their parents said or what their parents did. That's what they want to talk about the most. Sure, they have peer relationships they're trying to navigate, school teachers and things, but mostly it's what their parents do and say because they care very much. You matter a lot more than you think, or maybe you forgot because of what they're saying to you, because they're simultaneously pushing you away. To segue into teenagers' care, sometimes so much they become overwhelmed and say, I just don't care. I've had it. I'm done. They care a lot about all different kinds of things, not only their relationship with you, but what goes on in the world they're about to be launched into. They care about issues like the environment. They care about issues like that's going on overseas. They care about what happens in schools, like shootings in schools. They care about gun control passionately. And so they care so much, but they're not really sure what to do about those cares. What do I do? How do I make change happen? They're trying to figure all that out. And lastly, teenagers are just as anxious as their parents are, sometimes even more so. And we forget about that. We think, oh, high school, what a great time of life. Well, no, not necessarily. And they are worried, they're anxious about having one foot in the children's world and one foot in the adults' world. And they know how to be a student. You know, they've been a student in public school their whole life. I got this down. I know how to go to school, go to class, do homework, turn things in time, get ready for a test. I got that. But now this is going to end. Then what? Even if they go to college, college is different. College is responsibilities. There's a lot of freedom, but that comes with responsibilities. Then working too. Someday I'm going to be working a totally different life than I have now, and that's anxiety provoking. How am I going to be? Who am I going to be in this situation? It's anxiety provoking. So positive communication is made up of a few things Donna had gone over, but one is listening, really listening. Being heard. I want to make sure I'm being heard. I think I'm making sense, but am I? I'm not sure. I want to make sure that I am. I want to be heard. And the last is resolving conflict. So how to listen. To be fully present. You can see this gentleman, his body language, he's relaxed, he's not on his phone, there's not a TV that we can see, he's looking at her, a little bit to the side. The body language says a lot about his engagement, that he's fully listening. He's covering his mouth, he's not talking, he's listening to her. And then control your reactions. To which person would you more likely continuing saying whatever it is you tended to say? Going back to teenagers care very much about what you think and what you say. And sometimes they want to protect you from being scared or being angry. They don't want that. They want to take care of you. So if we're reacting, oh my gosh, or oh my God, they're not going to say anything else because they want to take care of you. They don't want you to be scared. They don't want you to be angry. Never mind, I was just kidding, I'm good, I'm all set, okay, yeah, bye. So you want to listen more likely to the gentleman all the way on the right. He's listening, even inside maybe screaming, he's listening, and what he's saying is, I can be with you in this difficult conversation. I can talk about sex, I can talk about drugs, I can sit here with you in this whole thing and be okay. You don't have to take care of me, just keep going. And then how to listen, continue. Be a sounding board. Check in and reflect on what they just said. Things like, I heard you say, or would I be right to think that? If you're not sure, this shows you're engaged. This shows you're paying attention. I want some clarification on that, please. It shows you care enough to make sure you're understanding them, and they'll keep going. We're back to encouragement. Say things like, tell me more about that. Because as they're talking, they're going to be checking. How's she doing? How's he doing? Should I keep going? And you say, yeah, tell me more. Like, cool, okay, I'll keep going. And after you hear them out, ask if they want feedback. Like, I have some thoughts, want to hear them. But before that, you could say, what do you think? Give them a chance to solve the problem or come to a solution. What ideas do they have? And they have plenty. Like I said, they care very much and they thought about things a lot. What do you think? Kind of gives them the idea that you have faith that they can figure this out. With some help, of course, but figure it out. Now, how many times have I said, can I just run something by you to somebody? I just want somebody to be that sounding board. I want to make sure, I just want to talk it out. As I'm talking, maybe I'll come up with a solution. But I also want to hear feedback from the other person, like clarification or validation, am I on the right track, that sort of thing. I'm looking for a sounding board. And then validate their feelings. Say things like, that's really tough, or I'm so sorry that happened to you. And I mean, we want everything to be fine. We want to say everything's going to be fine, but we don't know that. If they got broken up by somebody and their heart is breaking and they say terrible things and they betray you, that's not necessarily going to be fine. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be disaster, but saying, you know what, I know this is tough, but we'll get through this. We'll get through it. We'll get through it. Because if we say everything's going to be fine, we're kind of not telling them that we get it and we know how hard this could be. And also avoid saying there'll be another play, team, or relationship. Saying, oh, you didn't make the play, well, there'll be one next year. Or you didn't make the team, well, that's okay. We'll be in another time, or club, or relationship. They wanted that team. They wanted that person. They wanted to be on that club. And they wanted that place so badly. So telling them that doesn't reassure them. I wouldn't want to hear that. If something happened to me, I wouldn't want to be told, oh, there'll be another one, because I'm sad about this one. And that's what I want to talk about. But as parents, we want everything to be fine. We want them to be reassured. We want them to be okay. But to validate somebody's feelings, you validate what they're feeling, that's it, in that moment. Resist the rescue. Parents sometimes we want to rescue by controlling. We want to make sure they're okay. We want them to be safe. We don't want them to be hurt. So a conversation may say, Mom, I met this girl. And the mom says, you're too young to date. Oh, okay, shoo, man, dodge that one. Okay, they're not going to date. Cool. They're not going to they're not going to get hurt. They're not going to be let down. But instead, Mom, I met this girl. This child wants to talk to their mom about this person they're interested in. And maybe they want to talk about these new feelings they have that they haven't had before, that they're different than elementary school about their friends. They may have romantic feelings or intimate feelings. What do I do with this? What's going on here? How do I navigate this? Is what they're also saying by asking, I met this girl. So Mom just shuts down her shocked face. Okay, tell me more about that. So just to be able to hear what they're saying, to literally listen. Another conversation, Dad, what would you say if a friend wants you to get drunk with him? Of course, Dad, like, I knew it. Joe and Sue is a terrible influence. You need to find other friends. Okay, good. Problem solved. You're not going to get drunk. Cool. No, this kid, both of these kids are, if you react like that, okay, good, see ya, bye, thanks, never mind, I was just joking, yeah, bye. But Dad, again, when you hear your child say that, you're oh my God, this is terrible. Okay. And you might say, okay, I have some thoughts. If my friends said to me, hey, Megan, want to go get drunk? I would say, no, I don't want to get drunk. I don't like feeling drunk. It's not good for my health. I don't want to do that. That's what I would say. But what would you say? Because the fact that this child is bringing it up to you tells you they have some hesitation. Tells you that they're not just going to go and do it, because if they said, oh, cool, I'll get drunk, fine, they wouldn't bring it up. But they're bringing it up to you because they're not so sure, which is a good thing, that you did a good job, that this child's hesitant about getting drunk. Thinking, I don't know about that. Mm-hmm. And that's what this is really about. Am my thoughts correct? Am I on the right track here or not? So you listen and say, okay, what do you think? And the child might say, I'm not too comfortable with it either. Okay, well, this is how we navigate through this. This is how you tell Joe or Sue that you don't want to do this, you don't like how it feels, or you want to be healthy. And you're just talking about how to navigate that, because peer pressure, as we know, is extremely powerful. And how to be heard. We want to speak in a calm voice. Look at this child here. He's screaming at the top of his lungs, most likely, and the person with him, even her hair's going up. Is she going to hear what he's saying? No. She's going to, whoa, get me out of here. Just when somebody's yelling and shouting, it's like an alarm goes off, and everybody just like runs for the exit, or they shut down, or they yell back. But they're not hearing me. They are responding to my behavior, not my words. So speak in a calm voice. And use statements like I statements, and say what you need and what you want. I need, I want. You're talking about yourself. I'm an expert on me. I can talk about myself all the time. I want, I need. So that way the person knows that that I am talking about me, and I'm sharing with you what I need and what I want. Okay, that sounds pretty simple. Like, if I was a teenager, I'd say, I need privacy. Okay, you need privacy, that's cool, who doesn't? And then Instead of, you always barge in my room, you never knock on the door, you're saying you. As soon as you say you to somebody, they may get defensive and on guard. And they're not listening to you anymore. They're waiting for your lips to stop moving so they can say what they want to say to defend themselves. So instead, you say, I want some privacy, or I need some privacy, and they'll hear that. And also asking how come instead of why is also easier for people to hear. Instead of why did you do that, you say, how come this happened? Because you're not saying the you word, why did you do that? You're talking about the action. So you're separating the action from the person, and that's easier for people to hear. And then ask for feedback as to what was heard. I know this sounds silly, like, what did you hear me say? Sounds like a smart aleck thing to say, but if you really want to make sure you're being heard, you can say, would you mind, I just want to make sure I'm clear. Could you mind just saying back to me what you heard me say? Because you'd be surprised, maybe they totally missed it, and you have to try another way of communicating. Like 5 different people, 5 different friends could go to a movie together and come out with 5 different interpretations of what they just saw. Because they're 5 different people, 5 different ways of perceiving things. So they got the message in 5 different ways. So that's why it's okay to say, again, gentle way, I just want to make sure I'm being understood, because there's been some communication breakdown and I want to do a better job. So would you please say back to me what you just heard me say? And conflict resolution. This particular exchange did not seem to go well. And how do we know that without any words? Because most communication is nonverbal. And so we can see that this mom, I'm assuming it's the mother, has kind of a stern expression on her face. Her body language does not look receptive. Yeah, go ahead, tell me more. Go ahead, I dare you, go ahead. And maybe it's just her daughter. Her body's turned away, she's done, she's shutting down, I would say. That's my interpretation. So body language is important, tone is important. And so possible ways of conflict resolution are to establish guidelines. So not when the fight's about to start or the discussion or conflict. It's about working up towards this. So we've already established guidelines on how to listen to each other and how to be heard. You think about this, I've already established a pretty good communication with my child and with my parent. We've learned how to do these things. So that's what we're going to do when we have a conflict. And also, if the conflict goes on, it's perfectly fine, and you should take a break if needed with a time limit. So you're not yelling and swearing and name-calling, because when that happens, nobody's listening to you anymore. Nobody's hearing you. People are just toast, they're done, it's over. Nothing's going to get accomplished here if that happens. So it's a good thing. And of course, people get mad. It happens, it's okay. But you say, I'll be back in 5 minutes, or I'll be back in an hour. That tells the person that you're leaving that you care about fixing this. You care about making sure it gets resolved. And you are going to come back when you can better control your behaviors. So when you do leave, if you decide to leave, use that time to self-soothe, to calm yourself down, get your heart rate down, to feel a little bit calmer. So when you rejoin, you're more in control of your behaviors and what you're going to say. So it's not a time to rehearse what you're going to say, all these comebacks. It's a time of just calming down, whether you want to go outside, smell some fresh air, feel the sun on your face, listen to some music, do some meditation, go for a drive, go for a walk, but come back and better control your behavior so you can say what you want to say, so you're heard, or so you can listen effectively. Sometimes people also agree to a contract. Let's say someone wants to stay out later, a curfew. They want to change their curfew. It's okay, we can try the curfew. You want to stay out to 10:30 instead of 10, okay? But this is the contract. If you're late at 10:30, we're going to resume back to 10 o'clock. Is that okay? Sure, and then they both sign it. And then it also, if you want to do a contract and you're writing a contract, now you're looking at something instead of each other, which sometimes can be a little bit easier for people. So some examples of conflict resolution are extending the curfew. What the teenager would like the chance to do is demonstrate they can be responsible. I can extend the curfew, come in later, and show you that I can still be on time and I can be safe. What the parents could do is support that chance to prove to themselves that they can be responsible and keep themselves safe, because someday they're leaving your house and they're not going to have a curfew anymore. So how are they going to manage their time? How are they going to be healthy? We all need to sleep. What kind of choices are they going to make when they're not in your home anymore? And that's this chance to find out, to work things out. But you still need to provide limits. Like I said, you can't say, sure, yeah, fine, whatever. Just say, well, okay, we'll try 10:30, but if you're late, we're going back to 10 and we'll try it again, or whatever you decide to do. But the limits still need to be there. It can't be, yeah, sure, go ahead. Also, a friend group. A lot of times parents don't like who their children hang out with. But the teens would like to demonstrate the ability to navigate these peer relationships. Again, someday they're not going to be in your house, and they're going to be out in the world navigating tough relationships. And this is the time for them to do it, where they're still with you and you can still provide some nurturing and some structure. So you want to support their ability. Say, yeah, I think you got this. Go ahead. You can, this is fine. But also teach them the values, meaning talk to them about what kind of goals do you have for yourself. Do you want to go to college? Do you want to work a job? Someday, do you want to own a home? Do you want to get an apartment? Whatever you see for yourself in the future, is this a person going to support you in those goals or not? Are they going to be there for you? Are they going to be honest with you? Are they going to have integrity and dependability? Are they the kind of people that you want to have supporting you towards your goals and you them? Are you on the same path or not? So just kind of think about who gets to be your friend. It's an honor to be chosen as someone's friend. And have them understand that if they get to be your friend, they're lucky because you're heading places and you're going to do well. And we want to have you supported with that process, and you want to support them too, because you're in it together. Is this the kind of person this is? Just think about what I'm saying as far as how you choose friends. And the conclusion is, this is what we all want. We all want to have a good relationship with our child, with our parents. Because a parent-child relationship can be a lifelong connection that is unique. There is no relationship like a parent and a child. The parent knew the child day one and raised them to who they are when they're sitting with them, communicating. They watch them grow through that whole process. And that parent has been with that child through everything, their entire life, all the life transitions through everything, and loves them and cares about them. That's a unique relationship you can't imitate anywhere else. It's unique and hopefully lifelong. We all want to get along with our parents. We all want to get along with our teenagers. Who doesn't want that? So this is what we hope to have as a conclusion to learning the skills of listening and being heard and conflict resolution. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to Donna, to Sean and Mary Jo. Donna for inviting me to present, and Sean and Mary Jo for allowing me into the school and being part of this process. And also thank you, audience members, for coming. And last, I just want to point out that some of this material I used came from the Center for Parent and Teen Communication. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Megan. That was very informative, and I appreciated your examples and your physical demonstration of how our behavior as adults can cause our kids to distance from us. And it reminds me of being in clinical practice, where if I have a patient who's yelling or agitated, I'm too busy thinking about where the next escape exit is rather than am I hearing the patient. And I do say to them, I really want to hear you, but you're yelling at me and I'm so afraid that all I keep thinking about is how to get away from you, and I don't think that's what you want, right? So that's part of the communication process. But I want to turn it over to Mary Jo and Sean, and I'd like to ask you, based on what Megan so wonderfully presented, but what are the communication issues that occur in families that you work with here in school? And how do you help improve their communication process?
Sure.
You want to pull the microphone closer to you so we can hear you?
Sorry, I stuck to the table. So the communication within the families, or the communication issues that the students raise that they experience at home?
Both. I know that from my meeting. This presentation came about after meeting with the adjustment counselors and the guidance counselors and some of the faculty to talk about what are some of the issues, and communication was part of it. It was something that I thought would be helpful to have a further discussion about in presentation. So, but whatever the communication issues are that you see happening with the kids, whether it's in school or with their parents, and also the parents. I'm sure parents come to you asking for help. So how do you then help?
Oh, so oftentimes students will come to us and they will talk about how they're struggling with a lot and they're holding on to a lot of unnecessary worry, or they're trying to solve issues that are adult issues, and rather than kind of using their natural resources, which would be their parents or older siblings or perhaps another family member, an aunt or an uncle, or somebody within their own kind of support system, they're trying to solve everything on their own, or they're going to peers their own age, which are ill-equipped to give them that level of support. So it'll spill over, they'll have a lack of concentration, or we'll start to see them kind of experiencing other symptoms, and teachers will, speak to them or bring them to our attention, and then we find out they've been holding on to things that, we'll say, why aren't you, discussing this? And they'll say, well, I don't want to worry my parents. This is going on and that's going on. And it just seems like they feel like they need to shoulder everything.
Or burden people.
Or, they don't want to burden people. Or lots of times they're concerned about their parents themselves.
Right.
And that tends to be something that we're seeing a lot with the students, is they're not only taking an extraordinary amount of responsibility for themselves, oftentimes there's the need for perfection, especially as they're heading off into post-secondary life, whether it's college or career. But there's also a large responsibility for when parents are struggling. And oftentimes it's very secretive in nature, but they're not only taking care of themselves and their younger siblings, but they're worried about their parents and they don't know how to broker that conversation, so they're just not having it, or they feel it's not their place.
On the middle school level, sometimes we see kids that...
Could you put that microphone closer to you so we can hear you?
At the middle school level, sometimes we see kids who, they're worried about adult issues too, but they're even younger and less experienced. Sometimes they overhear parents talking about finances, or, excuse me, we have our therapy dog with us, and she's under the booth over here, and she's chasing after like little glints of light. But students will also come to us telling us that they don't feel heard at home, that they'll bring up an issue and it just won't, their parents won't take them seriously, or they'll get brushed off. So sometimes students will come and talk to us because it's easier to talk to us. They're not in a power struggle with us, or they feel that we're more approachable because they don't have that personal, that family connection to us. So to students, it may feel a lot easier to talk to a counselor than it would to a parent, even though they may feel like they have a good relationship at home, and the parent may say, oh, we talk about everything. There may be that one thing that the child does not want to disappoint a parent about, or they're at an age now where they have awareness that I don't want my parent to worry about this either, and I'll just try to figure it out on my own. So what we try to do is facilitate, well, who's a good parent to call, or when I call home, how can I bring this up so that we can begin bridging the communication gap. So that's what we see at the middle school. And so we will often try to role model that open communication with parents, both on the student end and with the parent, just so that we can facilitate communication even after school. And I'll check in with parents after a day or two or the next day. How did things go on at home? Were you guys able to sit down as a family? And we follow up. So that's what we see at the middle school level.
Okay. I think it would be helpful if you could introduce our guest this evening, who's is speaking out and saying,
I know.
She wants to be heard.
It's like the Wizard of Oz.
This is the school's therapy dog, Lila.
This is Lila.
Underneath the table, it must be from a cell phone or from our watch, little bits of light will reflect on the inside of the curtain, and it gets her attention. So she's scampering around trying to catch a little bit.
Sure. Can you talk about Lila's role and how Lila
Sure.
can help facilitate communication?
Well, when I walk into a classroom, if there's not a lot of energy in the room, the minute that Lila enters the room, everybody's focused on, oh, there's a dog in the room. And whatever kind of tension there might have been around a lesson that wasn't being understood or social tension in the room, the focus shifts, and it allows everybody to kind of loosen up for a minute. Even not in the classroom, I've had students say to me that they'll be sitting in a class and they'll look into the hallway and they'll see Lila walk by with me. And they'll say, just knowing that the therapy dog's in the school, that there's an animal in the school, like a little fluffy, pettable animal, makes them feel a little bit better. And even if I don't walk into the classroom, they've said that just seeing her in the building kind of relaxes them all a little
Right.
bit.
And there is a lot of research that looks at animals' impacting on neurotransmitters and creating relaxation. And I think, for me, that would be a very important thing for parents to be thinking about if they have pets at home, the role their pets might play in helping facilitate communication between them and their kids. And it might mean going for a walk together, or it might mean, if you're going to have a family meeting, making sure you include the pet.
Right, because they can kind of mellow everything out.
Sure.
Pets are like four-legged counselors. They give unconditional positive regard.
Which is what we all
Counselors are
want,
trained to do.
right?
Unconditional, meaning no matter what you say, I'm going to be positive and I'm going to accept you for who you are. No matter how bad a day I've had, when I come home, she's happy to see me. She has that unconditional positive regard. When she walks into a classroom, she's not upset with a student because they didn't do well on a quiz. She's just happy to see them. And most of the students in the school love it when she comes into a classroom. We have a couple that just are not dog people, and that's fine. Lila does not impose herself. She's not of the height where she can sort of get in people's faces, or she likes to stay off to the side where she's not going to get stepped on unless she's sort of welcomed over. So when she is sort of welcomed into a situation, it's because people want to engage with her, and she always puts people in a better mood. Even the few students in the school who have identified and said, Mr. Thomas, I really don't like dogs. I have a slight fear of dogs. Even those students are not afraid of her, and I've encouraged them to come work on your fear of dogs. If there's any dog out there that you could work on something like a fear of dogs, where there would be a small therapy dog like Lila. So her presence in the building just kind of mellows everything out.
Okay.
Puts a smile on almost everybody's face.
Well, I'm
Even
glad
the
to
faculty.
see that the school department is allowing Lila to come into the school.
She is a registered, bona fide therapy dog. She's been through all the classes. Most aggressive tendencies have been worked out of her. She's a certified canine good citizen with the American Kennel Club and registered with the Alliance of Therapy Dogs. There's a special insurance policy for her to come into the building and to be able to go into any of the Westport Community Schools buildings.
That's wonderful. It's a
It's not
wonderful,
expensive. It's just a
yeah, and it's a wonderful resource that I think people in the community need to be aware of the variety of things that the adjustment counselors, guidance counselors provide in supporting our students and supporting the parents. I would like to ask, too, what are some of the tough communication issues that come up in school between parents and their kids, and maybe even between the parents themselves?
Well, I think sometimes when there are very difficult discussions that need to be had, where we would like to have both parents in, depending on the parent relationship, or if it's no longer an intact family, or there might be some safety concerns around bringing the family together. We have to manage that in a situation that will allow for who do we want to start the conversation with, and then who's going to be able to, who's our best point of contact, who do we want to facilitate a safety plan with, or who would be the best person to communicate an action plan with, who's likely to follow through with what needs to happen immediately, down the road, and then how do we loop in or follow up with the other parent where we're able to provide an amount of support that will also support the effort without having it be misconstrued or, go not be misunderstood, I guess, depending on where people are at. Trying to find a way to, so it's important that sometimes when family members aren't all on the same page, but it's important for legal reasons that everybody have the same information. It can take a situation and like with a lot of moving pieces, it can move it in different directions and almost exacerbate a situation. So you have to, and it's unfortunate that it's happening in a school setting, because school is really about, focusing here, but it's almost like a little triage situation. And that's okay. We have the resources. We are very comfortable with the mobile crisis team, and we utilize them. They've been fantastic, and their response time has been wonderful for us in Westport. So we've had very, very good luck utilizing them. They've been out a few times this year. And we've had very good luck. We have a few private practice clinicians and child and family we have in-house. So we're pretty much covered 4 days a week.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
That you have those resources
It's
right here.
It's a great support.
Yeah.
Some of the difficult topics that we end up discussing with families, sometimes we're dealing with families who are not living under the same roof, and some of the difficult topics can be where a student feels safest, where a student feels most heard, talking to parents about some of the student's friends. Sometimes a student will come to us and they will talk about something pretty serious that is happening in their peer group, and we want to inform parents. We try to role model open communication with students. We also try to make sure that we don't make situations worse. So when we're given, when a student tells us about something that we have to report on, we try to inform parents that will be able to support the student. We always try to make sure that we don't muddy the waters. We're mandated reporters, not mandated investigators. And a lot of families have a lot of questions about that. Once we're given information about something that we are required to report, we cannot investigate at that point. Our role is not as investigators, and sometimes that's hard for families to sort of accept. But we do what we need to do because the child is the most important. Their safety trumps everything else.
Right.
So if egos get bruised, or if we have to kind of get yelled at by a parent, whatever, the child is the most, their safety and their well-being is the most important thing. So if the communication becomes uncomfortable for the adults, that's too bad for the adults, because we need to be able to say the things that the kid can't.
And I think that, the issue of safety is very important. A lot of, in parenting, I was the parent of a difficult teenager. And part of the parenting was there was always fear in me. And the fear in me was about his being safe, because his behavior and his decision-making was not good. And so, part of how I coped with that and dealt with that was I had professional help to help me. There was no way I was going to be able to do this on my own. And he was in a special school where they had therapy. We actually had family group therapies, there were 5 or 6 families that would come together and talk about what life was like and how to problem solve. And many times, kids wouldn't listen to their parent, but they might listen to me. But the focus for me with communication, always with him, was I wanted him to be safe. I wanted him to be okay. And so him making decisions was based on that. It was supporting that yes, go out and have fun, but how can you be safe?
Yes.
And what will you do if you're in a situation that doesn't feel safe? How will you respond? And, will you call me? Will you feel okay to call me so I can come and get you? And I think that part of it is, as a parent of a difficult teenager, was I had anxiety, but the anxiety was all about him being okay. And I think that a lot of parents, their anxiety is about their kids being okay, that they're safe, they're making decisions that are going to, people say, I want my kids to be happy. I want my kids to be at peace. I want them to have skills and feel confident in themselves. Happiness is sort of the frosting on the cake kind of thing, but I think that, the basic, this feeling secure in oneself, feeling confident in one's abilities, and part of communication with kids is instilling that in them, supporting that in them, helping foster that in them, while you're managing your own anxiety. Because I remember someone said to me, take your own pulse first before you react. And I would, and we had a good plan, was that if we felt it was escalating, it was timeout time, and we would take 20 minutes, and we would come back in 20 minutes and continue with the problem solving and the focusing on the issue to get some resolution. And I think it's really hard, but when you're communicating with people and there's any kind of conflict, the best situation is when it's a win-win. When each person leaves feeling like they've gotten something, that they have been preserved in some way, their ego has been preserved, and they feel like they have been heard. So I think that's part of it when we're talking about communication, is how do people feel safe to talk to you, that they feel safe to say what they need to say, and that you're communicating your support, especially of our kids, that they are making decisions, but they're keeping safety in mind, and they're also going to grow in the process. If we protect them too much, they're not going to learn and grow. Right. And we don't. And I think one of the hardest things as a parent is to see your child hurt, and feel powerless to heal it. And I think that's one of the hardest things, but hurt is part of growth, and supporting them through that and not shutting that down is really what's really important. So I guess what I want to ask you now is, what would be, for all of you, what are the important take-home messages that you think will help improve positive interactions and emotional well-being of everyone in the family?
So I'll actually offer one. When you were talking about kind of taking your own pulse, it brought up for me the slide that you had with all the different reactions, and which adult would you talk to, right? The one on the far right. Because I think that children from, early age on up, they're always scanning, right? Especially people who are anxious, right? They're always reading the body language, they're reading the room, right? They're checking for their own safety, right? So that how you present, which is so important in our work, what our office looks like, what kind of an environment we're creating, our tone of voice, how we approach a topic. So for parents to just take that moment, if they can, when really their body is, asking them to do something different. But to also be able to, one, not react or overreact or catastrophize a situation, which can be difficult, but to also maybe, pause and to check in with the child if the situation allows for it, and say, I learned this from my daughter. Okay, you're on a roll. What do you need from me right now? Am I just listening, or am I taking notes because you need me to help you formulate a plan? Because she's, if it's constant at certain ages in adolescence, it's like when they're little in the car and it's like, you don't know what is pertinent, thank you, that's the word, and what I'm responding to, or what is just a need to express and get off their chest. So that was something that, one day it was a litany, and I was like trying to keep up with it. And the feedback that I got was, well, no, I'm not asking you to help me solve it. I just wanted to just get it off my chest. And I was like, oh, thank goodness, because I'm tired,
And that's a great, and
that
that's
was a valuable lesson, because I thought, whew, I'm so used to just kind of helping her, but now she's in middle school, so she's got it.
Well, and I think that's great for anyone who comes to you and they're in distress.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you need from me right now?
Exactly.
You just need me to listen to you because I'm here for you.
Right.
Right.
And it's setting the stage, really. And by doing that, it's healthier for both parties. And even starting a family meeting that way and coming in and saying, okay, so what's the purpose of this meeting? What do you want to get out of it, Mom? What do you want to get out of it? What do you want to get out of it? What's our time frame? What's realistic? Go.
Well, I think that's really important, too, as well, that you're talking about family, working with families. My experience as a parent to an adolescent who had a mental illness and was in a special program is that the best work that was done to help him was the work I did with him. That I was in therapy with him, that we did the multifamily group together. He had his individual psychiatrist, therapist, and he would go in and I would go in after, and we talk about, okay, let's talk about what happened this week, and we work together. And I think that when parents and kids, they're kind of headbutting, they're struggling with each other, that's a time to take a step back and say, this is not really what I want. I want to work with you, I want to help you, I want to be available to you. But again, the best work that was done to help him was that I was there for him, and that it reminded me of a time he said to me, I said, how do you know that I care about you? He said, you spend a lot of time with me. And I did. So I think that's really important. Asking, communicating, what do you need from me right now? How can I help you right now?
I think we
Those
ask
two-
students that.
What's that?
We ask students that very question multiple times per day. Like, what can I do to help? The takeaway I think I would leave with people is there's no one issue, nothing that's more important than your kid. That they shouldn't be afraid to talk to you about anything. There should be open communication, and if there isn't over any particular issue, you have to ask yourself why that issue is more important than open communication with my kid. I remember a personal thing that when I got a phone call that my 18-year-old had been in a small car accident, and my 18-year-old was worried that I would be upset, and I was just grateful that he was okay. Like, the thought of the car never even entered my mind, but then I thought, like, why does he think that that's what my immediate concern is going to be? I need to let him know that I don't care at all about the car, that the most important thing is you. And don't ever be afraid to tell me or call me, like, I'm going to be in the car before I'm going to be on my way to rescue you right away. Don't ever be afraid to call me. So no issue is ever so important that they shouldn't be able to talk to you. That's the message to deliver.
Okay. And how about for you, Megan? What would be your take home?
Thank you. So those are all excellent responses. So I just want to tag along with those. Like who you were saying, Donna, that sometimes we forget we're on the same page, that we butt heads, like, wait a second, we both want the same thing. We both want to get along. We both want to like each other and get along, so let's remember that. We're working together with you to achieve this goal. And like you were saying also, Sean, about how to reflect on your own reaction, like take your own pulse, like, why is this such a big deal to me? And why am I uncomfortable talking about sex or drugs or whatever it is? Why am I reacting this way? Yes, I want my child to be safe, of course, and be okay, but is there something else I need to work on and address before I can really be as effective as I want to be? So that's the kinds of things I would also suggest parents will also do their own work on what's being triggered for me, because things happen to us. We all have baggage. Things might come up, and is that interfering with how I want to be the best parent I can be?
Yes, and thank you. I certainly learned an awful lot about being a parent, and a lot about myself. Some I didn't like, but I learned a lot about myself in the process of parenting him. And I I don't think I would have had I not been open to the help that was available. And of course, I work in mental health, so I'm going to be open to the help that's available. But, there's a saying, it takes a village, and in this particular case, it really did. So thank you for that. I know that, that there are a lot of families that struggle for a variety of reasons. My message is that you don't really have to struggle as long as you are open to getting the help and the support you need to make it work. Mm-hmm. So I want to thank our speakers, but I also want to just encourage people. Next week, on Wednesday, the 22nd, we're going to hold another presentation, and this one is called The Impact of Opioid Addiction on Individuals, Families, and Communities, a Public Health Crisis. And it will be held here at the middle high school at 6 o'clock. Doors will open at 5:30. We have 4 speakers, and I will say that one of the issues we might talk about, which I really want to, is the money that's available in the opioid settlement funds that have come to our town, that I would love to hear input from people in the community about what they think would be the best use of this money related to helping people who are struggling with substance abuse and opioid addiction. So on that note, I want to say thank you again, and I hope this was helpful.